I've continued with the piece, doing some repaints to the chains. Originally, they just had the hard outline from the selection tool when I painted them the first time, and I didn't really like that. They were too sharp for the rest of the image. So I went back and lowered the opacity of that chain layer and painted them on a new layer so they blend in a little better. Also didn't like how dark some of it was. They still need some touch-ups, but I did that. Continued some chest detail on the other side, which I didn't have it earlier, and worked more on the falling snow. I made a second layer of snow, which would be basically background snow. It only shows up in the furthest areas and much less in the foreground. And it's darker and more faded. And then you have the closer falling snow and a little more detail on the snow drifts. I added the drifts to the pipes in the background so you can see where the snow is kind of collected on top of the pipes, and added a little shade to the bottom of the drifts and light to the top, just trying to give them a little form. It still needs some detail on various parts, but it's getting pretty close. I'm gonna keep going with the snow. It's an element that gives it a bit of something different. Okay, so it's getting nearer to the end of the piece, and sometimes it can be difficult to figure out or decide what really needs to be done in order to call it finished. So I've taken to just making a list. It keeps things very clear in my mind. It keeps me from just pushing pixels around kind of aimlessly. So one thing that has to be done is the zombie hands. I originally took the reference photos and kind of sketched them in, but now I really need to paint them in as a final. So I'm going to turn off my snow layers. They only serve to get in my way, and pull up my refs here. I've also condensed a lot of my layers, so almost everything is now in this background layer, with the exception of a couple of detail spots and the chains. So on this new layer 31, I will sketch the hands. I'm trying to concentrate on the planes of the hand, basically the top being a distinct value change from the arm. The fingers, where they angle down, then become a different value block than the rest of it, so that even from a distance you can kind of get the form in the hand without having to be able to make out the detail. Okay, that's good for now on those. Now, something else I need to go look at is maybe putting in some more just very faded pipes in the background. Put a couple here on the left side, and they seem a little stark without a little more to go on to kind of balance them out. Just very faded verticals and horizontals to give the idea that there's a lot more going on back there. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the snow. Take out the falling snow and look at the collected snow. I do need to work with some on the ground. I hadn't really designed it initially for there to be snow on the objects on the ground, but in order to carry out throughout the image, you would have some collected on various spots. And I'm trying to cut out some grass into the snow to help it make it look like it's in patches and there's some dimensionality to the snow and the grass. Not sure how well that's really coming off, but I don't want the whole thing just to be white or visually it's going to fade out very easily. I'm looking back here. Sorry. I must have left one of my drawings of the staff on and merged it down. I'll have to paint it out. I was virtually going to try to fade out the back of the staff behind him, but it's too big of a difference value-wise that I say that the staff pole is black here, just jet black, and then down here I make it really light, and it's too big of a difference for me to try to sell. So make it darker, and then I can make the end of it put some like bronze ends on it or something. Give it the same lighting with the highlight streak towards the center, and hopefully visually that you can pick up that that's a continuation of the same object. Now this is a brush that I enjoy playing around with quite a bit, and it just comes up square. Just made a square brush or a rectangle. It's like 50 by 200 pixels, I believe, and it's set to follow the direction of my brush stroke. So I always have the long flat edge going the direction that I make the stroke, and it can be really good for cleaning up edges like this. You can just go in, you always have a very sharp, crisp angle. A bit like using a palette knife in regular painting. Let's see about maybe doing some work up here a little bit. Haven't done anything except that initial block in. Now let's see if I can just refine some of these edges of the strokes. It's a little bit harder since I flattened my reflection layer into my paint. That wasn't a bright idea, but there we go. Now I just have to work with it. Those electric arcs are up there, then that should be tinting. These little white probe things, which I'm not sure what they really are, but so that's lighting them bluish from the electricity. Let me take a pause there, take a progression snapshot, and I will continue later. We're down to just the last looks on the piece now. Made a list of a couple of things to take care of. But overall, everything that needs attention has been put in. The piece holds up pretty well as it is. But just some final details and things that I hadn't got around to doing. First thing is this hand on the right side, his left hand. I originally had it to be a glove. He was going to have a gloved hand, but I think it'd be more interesting to give him a machine hand on that side. On one arm, he has just the kind of the grotesque, greenish, withered hand, and over here he'll have some sort of machine claw. But just taking a look at it and see what else needs to be done. I need to also tend to adding a little more color. I want to add some rivets into this beam back here, maybe on both sides, at least one side. It's a little too flat. Plus maybe some more blue ore around this. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Flip off some of these snow layers. I want to paint it under these chains. I don't need those in the way while I'm painting. I'll just do it on that layer. As I'm doing the metal, I'm figuring out that I have a better time if I sketch it in a dark and bring in the highlights rather than the normal way, which would be to paint something light and add the shadows. I don't know, it just seems to work better for me that way. I'm thinking it'll just be a very simple sort of claw hand. I'll have, oh yeah, the snow drifts. I'll turn that off for a second too. Yeah, I'll just erase it out later so it can show through. Basically, I have two claws on this side and one from the opposing side coming in. Close them up some more. I'm just using my square brush since I need sharp angle, clean edges. That back one is basically, I'm going to just do as a shadow and give the indication it's behind the other ones. Center it under the hand a little better. And I need to work up some sort of round joint in the middle. I think it'll make it a little more prominent. Again, it would really do me good if I studied machines how they work. This is a very simple design as far as mechanics. And I certainly would if I did it any more often than I do now. It doesn't come up very often now, so it wouldn't be a great use of my time, but if I did it any more, then it'd be worth it to add that credibility to my work. So much better to be able to understand how something works rather than just what something looks like, because then later you can get that knowledge and apply it to other things. If you can kind of understand how armor works and how it fits together, even a little bit, then it can help you create a lot more believable armor designs. Or whatever it is, or even clothing, or it doesn't matter your field. If you can understand the way your subject has to work in the real world, then it makes a big difference. Unless I wanted this to follow a similar design as his legs. Let me see about that. I'll create another layer and just play with this idea that maybe this top piece is a split. And the bottom piece fits between them at the joint, in which case it's a lot thinner, but maybe it's bent on the end to help it grab stuff. I think it's visually more interesting that way anyway. So we'll go with that. Sometimes that's all that really matters. There's a point at which you just have to say, this is a piece of art, and I'm not designing this to actually be built and what just looks cool. It's not always an easy place to get to. I, for one, who have a very realistic background or realism background, my brain always wants to make it completely believable. It has to be something that can really exist. It has to be technically accurate in every respect. Otherwise, there's a warning going off in my head. And for me, it's learning to ignore that and just say, yeah, but it looks cool. It doesn't matter. We'll have a similar thing on this back one, I suppose. Oh yeah, because that's folding back. This other layer, yeah, ends up covering most of that. Let me go ahead and clean that up, make sure I can see what I need to through there. I can just select that layer. If you don't know that shortcut, I know I'll mention it since it seems like a lot of people don't. If you hold down the Command key for Mac, Control key for Windows users, and then you click on the picture of the layer in the layers palette. So in this case, the layer with the mechanical hand, I will hold down the Command key and click on that picture. It will select everything in that layer. In which case, in this area, it's only the mechanical hand. Then I can go up to my snowdrifts layer, which is accidentally covering it, and I can just hit delete, which it might delete something somewhere else in the image that I don't want to. Or I can just get my switch to the eraser tool and erase it out in the exact shape of my hand, and that way I don't have to guess where my edges are by erasing them. I just deselect. Okay, so that snowdrifts look okay. The chains aren't covering it. There's one little spot right there. I might make it bigger. Let me just test that to see how that looks. Oh yes, turn that off first. Well, that side's already heavy. I don't think I need it larger. I'm not sure why I added this to that side. If I added it to one side, it should have been that side to offset this side being visually heavier. Whilst I wasn't paying attention. Okay, we'll move back up. And snow. And I might brighten those highlights a little bit just using the dodge tool set to highlights. And running over those highlights, brighten those a little bit. And it accidentally brightened the paint in the background. There we go. Also want to brighten some of these snow. 50% is too much. Some of these snow. I went back and added just a little more light to the top of the snow and then shadow for the side or underneath to give it some more dimensionality. So you can pull in here and see that there's two different sides to the snow. I'm going to brighten that up a little bit. Okay, mechanical hand. What else do I need? Oh yeah, I just need to add some more color. I did add a levels to generally brighten the background. I wanted him and his darks to stay there. I wanted the ground down here to stay basically a darker tone. But the background itself, without the layers, everything just tends to be very medium tone, which isn't working for me. Visually, it could print out very dull. So just adding a little more contrast with that layer of levels. With a mask on it just masked out him by painting black into the mask. And now I'm going to try adding a bit more color saturation. Again, just afraid that it'll print out a little dull. Now there is a lot of ways you could do this. You can do this with a adjustment layer set to color and ramp it up that way. Or you could paint into a new layer with colors or all kinds of stuff. I'm going to just try one I haven't tried before because I feel like experimenting a little bit. So I'm going to grab everything, Command A for select all, copy merged, which is copy merged, or Shift Command C. Again, Command for Mac, Control for Windows. And paste that, and I can set that to color. And I set that to saturation. That's why I'm not getting any feedback. Okay. And this is something I also do quite a bit right towards the very end of a piece. I'll play around with just adjusting the colors. Now see, that's an interesting color scheme. That's not one I would have thought of using at all, but it's interesting. And I could have worked the piece with that color scheme and it would have worked. So it's just something to remember. I might save a version of it and keep that on hold as an idea for a color scheme later. Or if for some reason that I don't know of now that I never need to make, say, a follow-up image to this one, I could use that version of the color scheme. I don't know, it's just pink, orange, dull greens. Not something I'd think of, but it works. Okay. Now it's working in part of the image for me. It's increasing my blues and greens here in the background, which I want because the background is primarily the thing that's lacking a lot of color. He does have some blues, some bronze tones, and he's sitting okay. But back here it's just getting so grayed out that I'm afraid that printing won't show up with any color. I'm going to shift it towards yellow a little bit. It's just getting too cold. It's getting too cyan, really. So I can add, just straight yellow and see how that is. I like that more. Just set it off to one side a little bit and mask that. Since I already have him masked on this layer in this mask, then I'm going to just copy that mask over to this one and adjust it, since it can just give me a starting point. And in order to do that, I can just hold down the Alt key over here in the Layers palette, hold down the Alt key and drag that mask up to this layer. And then you can see the two triangles. It's probably really small on your screen, but it shows two triangles for duplication. And I can release that there, and it says Replace Layer Mask. Yes, because I want to copy this mask onto this layer. And now it's just showing through the area that would be white on this layer. But I want all of the background to be included, all the major background here. And I can just fill that with Command Delete, since white is my background color. Oh, sorry, other way. I am on the wrong layer on the mask. There we go. And you can also do that same thing, Command and click on the mask, and it'll show you what is being masked and what is not in that layer. So basically all of him, that's fine. He doesn't really need more color. I can try adding it down here though. Foreground can use some more color. Alright, I'm going to fade out some of it, such as this purple. It's just a little too purple for me. It can be almost gray, and that's fine. Down there. Basically, I want this scene to be desaturated. This isn't a bright scene. It's supposed to be cold. It's supposed to be, I don't want to say morbid, but death-like. Definitely has a death element. So dull and kind of forbidding, which I associate with fairly saturated images. That's just a little extra for the printing. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to turn off this colors and the levels in order to keep painting. Otherwise, it'll adjust the tones that I'm trying to do underneath. And next, let's add just a little more detail to this guy down here. Turn off my snow. Reshape that light pattern. I want it to be lit on the top and front rather than from the back. I have to say that skull from that angle is one of the oddest shapes. It's probably not even making sense. And that needs to be cut in. Just a little detail like I did on this guy around the fuse. This is also a good way that you can kind of do scars. Just make a, instead of making a really dark shape for a scar, just making a fairly darker, and then adding light around it as if the skin is perhaps pinched up to it, and that can work better. Or, in actuality, a lot of scars are lighter than the surrounding skin. For some reason, people do them darker. Um, I have a couple of scars, and they all have a lighter tissue than the pinkish tone of my regular skin. Chains. I'm gonna darken this chain. I didn't really want it too dark, but it's too close to his arm tone to be visibly differentiated. There. Now, over here it's not too bad since the arm is darker than the chain on this side. Okay, next, rivets. I was out just earlier today, so meeting some friends for coffee, and there's a building nearby me that had some big girders, and I was looking at how those fit together. It's not really the layer I meant to do that on. And it had an interesting pattern of rivets. So I'm thinking that maybe there's a girder that goes the other direction from here that has to connect. Turn off that snowdrift. And so there's a vertical piece here that connects to give it added stability from where it connects on the other side, I would assume. And there is 4 rivets. Such a great word. On each side of the vertical support. That's level. That doesn't look real low. Or if I'm actually paying attention, I'll just copy and paste that. There we go. And then, that's bothering me. Instead of having to paint the shadow around the rivets, that I just thought I'd paint them dark and then go in lighter and hit them to give them a little roundness. Over highlight these and then pull back and look at it and see if I need to tone it down. Actually, that's not bad. I was afraid I was going to go too light or dark with it and make it stand out too much. Okay. Oh yes. Now, like I said before, I don't want to do too much detail in this chain. Uh, I could easily spend hours and hours and hours doing all kinds of little detail in this chain. So instead of that, I just want to do some detailing and highlights on the part nearest to him. And basically make my brush bigger so you can actually see it. Alright, switch over here. Keep most of the detail and most of the contrast in an area right around him, and then let it go less as it goes out. And as it comes out, the image just gets less and less detail. So down here you have far less detail than what you'd have here in the center. And it just helps to focus attention on him. And if everything has an equal amount of detail, the same as him, then it really diminishes the power of that detail. I'd say it's just best to put it where you need it the most. Okay, now, I have started a little bit, like here on this one, adding a little shine to it, and that was basically a test to see if I wanted to continue that somewhere else, and I do. So I think I want to continue it over here. So just using the same highlight and colors as what's on his manacle thing. Take my saturation down a little bit. I'm having a hard time getting light enough on my touch. Focusing on just hitting the joints. Feels like I need some right along this area. That's pretty close to what I need. Again, don't want to go overboard. It's so easy to go overboard on adding highlights. They're just kind of fun to do, and they give a lot of punch, but yet they're really not needed as much as you want to paint them in there. That's just too much. I just need a thin suggestion of highlight. And maybe some very light It's got to be it. Otherwise, I'm gonna go crazy. Okay. Yeah, this one I'm not sure about too much, but I'm gonna try adding a blue light, kind of an aura glow around the staff and these bulbs. This might, this will probably be my only effect layer. Everybody else is just regular paint on a normal layer. I like using the new linear dodge. That's only been in the last couple of versions of Photoshop. Linear light and hard light used to be the main ones, but I find linear dodge gives a very realistic light glow. And you always want to get a color that's darker than you probably think you need, which is this is a pretty dark blue, slightly to the violet side. And it gives a lot of chroma, that is a lot of saturation and color, while it brightens. So that's what I want here. Basically, I want to tint the background while just slightly lightening it. Oh, I got my chains in, covering up my bulb. Hang on here. I thought I corrected that yesterday. Apparently not. Okay, let me fix that before I forget. Yeah, it gives it some pop. And maybe just a little bit on his eyes to key the colors and the effects together. It's probably just a bit too much. Very subtle. That's what I need, subtle. And I'm going to brighten some of this blue in his chest. We've brightened the rest of this, and I think his chest can now stand to be brought up a little bit. Part of it was on its different layer than that background, so I just got to come in here and correct that on the other layer and match up to the value that I raised the other part to. Okay. Good, good. And that layer just seems to make it slightly more purple than I need, so I can adjust that back to the blue side a little bit. Yeah. Not a real powerful effect, but I don't really need a powerful effect. I'm going to erase off a little bit there in the front. Just kind of want it just behind. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to put that over my color layer. I'm going to affect everything. Let me me take a look at everything turned on to make sure I didn't goof up any of my layers. Okay. And I just hit the F key if you're not familiar with that. Of course, I have all that stuff in the background. In Macintosh, normally you have just the free floating image over the background. Hit the F key. It'll fill the background with gray, I believe is the default. You can right click on the background and select if you want a different color. I usually don't go with black because it gives a artificial contrast, too much artificial contrast. It's likely the image will not be viewed with a black background, and so you shouldn't paint it that way, because you'll adjust your image just unintentionally to match that. So gray is the most best color, I think, to have next to it just while you're painting. But you can also hit F again and it'll fill the whole screen with black, and you can view it full screen. Just kind of a gallery view. And that's pretty much everything. I'm thinking I might want to retint back here on that right side. I don't know, it's getting kind of a greenish tone that I think needs to be a little more blue. It's bothering me. So I'll make a new layer, just a color layer. And you'll see this blue tone over here is not bad. And I just want that to be here as well. Yeah, that's very much just a personal preference, but I like it better. And I don't need to change the color of that chain, so I'll erase that. Okay, anything else? One last thing to do is flip the image horizontally, see if maybe I missed something, and save the file before I forget. I'll resave it when I flip it back. But like here, one of these falling snow. I don't really need snow falling right on the tip of his nose. That looks kind of weird. Or right there, that one's bothering me. Oh, I hadn't thought about this, but maybe I should add just a small glue edge to that from his staff. Keep that consistent. just to help that whole luminous idea. Again, this is something I feel like I'm about to go overboard on, so I'm going to just put a couple more strokes and see if I need to back off or erase any of that I just did. Go crazy at reflected lights. I don't think I really need it on these buckle things. And I'm going to tone down the saturation on this part. I guess it wasn't too much. Okay. Yeah, looking at the whole thing, that's okay. Alright. That hand. The darks there getting a bit dark for me now that I pull out and look at it. Just gonna lighten those up a little bit so they match that chain a bit more. And for some reason, I must have sampled a purple tone, so I am going to adjust that back to... Oh, okay, because it's running into this color layer is what's doing it. And it's adjusting the tone. Alright, flip the horizontal back. Slowly. It's saving. Okay, I'll make a duplicate. And that. Flatten this one. I'm painting this a little larger than it needs to be, and I'm forgetting what I need to reduce it back down to. Hang on. Yeah, my first ones were at the right size. 3543. Okay. Actual size. And I like to give it just one last smart sharpen before I call it finished, just to crisp up some of the strokes. Yeah, that's about it. Again, something that you can definitely overdo. Alright, there it is. I'll call it finished and get the files together. I appreciate you watching, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. Maybe picked up a thing or two, or just gave you some ideas for your own work.